Hello, you are watching my YouTube channel. I am your host Kamran Arshad. Today, I have invited a guest in this vlog, and I am going to discuss her life, her visions, her goals, and most importantly, her fear. Hello and welcome. We are delighted to have Kintra Aisha here today with us. Kintra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited for having this opportunity to speak with you.
Pleasure to have you. But to start this interview properly, can you please tell us what inspired you to pursue a career as trauma therapist, certified clinical trauma specialist, individual addiction, family EDMR practitioner, and you have done MPhil clinical psychology, trauma informed therapist, and member of APA, right? And perhaps share a bit about your journey leading up to your current role.
Sure. So I wanted to pursue a career as a therapist ever since I was young. Because when I grew up in the school, I used to see that there were a lot of mental health concerns that we children used to go through back then. But there weren't enough informed individuals around us or informed professionals around us who would understand the complexities and the nuances of mental health struggles. And a lot of these struggles emerge from traumatic experiences that children have gone through within their home, outside of their home, or even within the school settings, within interpersonal settings. And there weren't enough trauma informed individuals around us to help us really cater to those or even bring those forward. Or even deal with with the sensitivity that is required. So at that point in time, I wanted to pursue a career in the mental health field, and I thought that is pretty much about it. I'll become a clinical psychologist one day, and that is how I'll be a therapist. I did not really know back then that trauma therapy is a niche or a field of its own. Until I was 21 and I was studying in this exchange program in Turkey, and I learned about complex trauma and PTSD, complex PTSD, by my clinical psychology professor over there. And then she told me that there is another field within the field of therapy, which is trauma therapy. And it is a lot more different than the traditional talk therapies that we see in the counseling that we see nowadays. And she encouraged me to really look into that once I go back to my country, which is Pakistan. So when I came back, I started working as an intern at this place called Trauma Release and Wellness Center, which is situated in Karachi. And in that center, I learned a lot of things about how trauma recovery works, how trauma is very different from what we have in mind about it, how trauma healing works basically by ensuring that a client is supported and is ensured safety and is empowered to actually look past what they have gone through and move towards more post-traumatic growth. It requires a lot of safety within a person as well who has suffered trauma, and also safety in the environment for them as well. So really working in that internship gave me a very clear idea of how addiction ties into this, how family dynamics tie into this, how our individual role is there, how society's role is there. And that is where I got further encouraged to pursue this as a full-time career. So after I was done with my internship, at that time I was doing my bachelor's in psychology. When I finished my bachelor's in psychology, I enrolled in the MPhil program of clinical psychology at Bahria University. And I started taking certifications from Arizona Trauma Institute, which were the certified clinical trauma specialist individual, and then the family one, and then the addiction one. And those had a rigorous process of their own. Uh, we had to take the training, and then we had to study for up to 2 to 3 months and then pass the exam. And then even with that certification, we have to have continuing education as an international standard, so that we are up to date about the latest trauma recovery practices that are going on a global level. After that, I wanted to make this not just a trauma informed therapy field of mine. I wanted to be solely focused on trauma recovery. So I took up the EMDR certification. And in the EMDR certification, this is again another international certification, because so far in Pakistan, there's just one person who trains that, Dr. Khadija Tahir. So I took it from her. And in that training, I learned how eye movement can be used, how bilateral stimulation can be used as a way to heal trauma as well. So this has been my journey so far. And I find it a very fulfilling field to be in. When I see clients who have had not so good experiences with traditional talk therapy, and then they come towards trauma therapy field, they come towards, body based work, somatic based work, and then they see differences in their healing journey, in their emotional well-being, in their mental well-being after that. It really gives me this encouragement that okay, we are headed towards the right direction, towards creating a more trauma informed future in Pakistan. So this has been my journey so far.
Actually, I have been listening you since 5 minutes. And when I saw your profile, so I didn't expect that you have a lot of knowledge about this field. Now I am impressed by the information you have provided me or provided to the people. So I want to ask you first question, which is relevant to this subject which we are conducting this interview. The question is that, Kendra, when we hear the word trauma, right, we feel very frightened. We started shivering. What is that trauma? What is the trauma for the people who do not know? What is that?
So trauma has this misconception generally that people think trauma is the event that has happened. For example, if I got into a car accident the other day, so that is a trauma for me. A lot of people have this misconception that is the event like an earthquake or like a very big bad event that happened in our lives.
Hmm.
Um, but the thing is that trauma's definition has evolved over time.
Hmm.
And trauma now is defined as not the event that has happened, the bad event that has happened, but what happened within us as a response to that. So a lot of people get into car accidents. There will be some people who will never drive a car again after that, and there will
Hmm.
be some people who will still drive a car after that, right? So the
Hmm.
people who could not drive a car again, and they get very frightened when they see a car, they get very frightened when they in the driving seat, they start shivering, their body starts reacting differently, their thoughts
Oh.
start getting very foggy at that time. That is trauma. That is the response to the event that they have gotten. A lot of people have survived earthquakes and then they went back to the same place. A lot of people could not. Similarly, a lot of people have survived divorces, and a lot of people have had a hard time moving on from their divorces. So it's not really about the event, it's about what happened within you as a response to that bad event that happened in your life. So
Hmm.
a lot of times we're able to cope with a lot of bad events in our life if we have enough support around us. If
Hmm.
I am going through something bad in my life and I have enough family around me, I have my friends around me who are supporting me, I have my peers around me who are supporting me, most probably I'll be able to get out of that as well. But if I do not have any support as well, and if I'm left to deal with it all alone by myself, then it's going to create a problem. Then it's going to be something that my body has had to fight and survive, and now it still doesn't believe that we're out of that bad event, and it's still carrying on the symptoms, it's still carrying on the responses of that event even up to now. So even though now I'm safe, but my heart still beats around that event and starts beating very fast. I'm still safe, but suddenly I get out of breath. Then that is a trauma response. That is what trauma really is. My body has felt it back then, and my body is still feeling it now, even though that event is over. So I hope that clears it up.
Yeah. Can you share a specific case where your training as a certified clinical trauma specialist significantly impacted a client's recovery journey?
Okay, so I won't be able to exactly share the details of any client's case like that because confidentiality
Yes.
matters. But yes,
There's no need to
I can
mention
share
his or
some
her name.
insights.
You can tell us just a story
Sure.
that if someone find himself or herself in a trauma, how to deal with them.
Sure. So I've had a lot of clients who I've primarily had a lot of trauma clients who have had trauma histories and complex trauma histories. And whenever one thing that I always noticed about the clients is that they always came into the therapy session with very different set of problems than what the actual problem of the trauma was. So usually it would be health anxiety, usually it could be feeling very disconnected from the world, usually it could be having relationship problems, it could be having this panic attack of a situation every now and then. So initially trauma is not really registered to the person that okay, this is what I'm going through. Usually it's a different set of symptoms. It's depression, it's anxiety, it manifests in very different ways. So all of my clients who came to me, they had very different set of initial problems that they reported as compared to when we went deeper into therapy and we realized, oh, there is something traumatic that has happened in this person's life. And what really helped with each one of my clients, let's if I can give an example that for example, if I had a client who had anxiety about their health, and they were really worried that what if I may not be able to survive any hypothetical illness or any hypothetical disease. So what really turned out to be is that there have been a history, or there have been a relationship with illnesses or death within the family as well, and those were not really processed that well either within the family or for the person themselves. And then when they come into therapy, that deep rooted cause is later on revealed, and then later on we work with it. But what's important is to always make sure that any client who walks into a trauma therapy session, they are able to get the resources to first deal with their current problems, whatever they're facing, be it problems at their office, problems in their marital relationship, problems with their family, problems with their friends. Once they're able to deal with those, once they're able to deal with the symptoms, for example, if a client has trouble breathing, then just helping them breathe first of all. If a client has trouble regulating their heartbeat at that time, just helping them regulate that. So just helping them emotionally regulate themselves, that is the first key. And after that, once they're able to do that in their everyday life, when we move towards the more distressing parts of their life, such as their childhood, such as any deaths within the family of that client who has had history of illness, anxiety, health anxiety,
Hmm.
then they're able to find enough resources within themselves to deal with the traumatic content of their life as well. And then
Hmm.
we process that, we grieve that, we use different art therapy resources, we use different mindfulness based resources. And after that, when they're able to re-look at their history and be like, okay, this is what I've gone through, and this is now the history that I want to move on with. This is the life that I want to move on with. So they rewrite their whole life history as well. That fine, I may have gone through some bad things in the past, but what do I need to now move on with my life? What do I need to create a better future and a better present? So that has been the journey for a lot of my clients, where they're not defined by their history, their trauma history. And that's why I really believe in one thing that I say to my clients, that your backstory is does not have to be your next chapter.
Hmm. Well enough. And what's your least favorite part of your job?
My least favorite part of the job is that I wish there were more trauma focused and trauma informed professionals within Pakistan. We still have a lot of them, but given the population ratio that we have, where every single person in Pakistan that we come across with, they have at least one traumatic event that they have gone through in their life. I wish that there are more, because then we have to take on a lot of caseloads. We have to take on a lot of clients as well, because we do want to cater to the entire population as much as we can. But I really wish that that the mental health system within Pakistan has a regulatory body, and it has enough trainings accessible and available for people to become trauma informed, because these trainings are international, and of course they're on the expensive side as well. They require a lot of more resources as well. So I would really want one day to wake up and see that okay, there are enough trainings that are accessible within Pakistan in an affordable price range. There are more trauma informed individuals that we have, so that every client out there gets to be referred to another trauma informed individual. Because these days what I see is that I get a lot of clients that okay, our therapist did not work out for us, that therapist did not work out for us because she was not trauma informed, he was not trauma informed. So yeah, I would wish that there's more diversity within the field as well.
I want to know about that person who motivated you and guided you to pursue this career. I mean, how did you get into this?
So the person who really guided me and mentored me throughout this was On Ali from Trauma Release and Wellness Center. So he became qualified as a trauma-informed therapist internationally, and then he came to Pakistan and he set up Trauma Release and Wellness Center over here, which is the place where I interned at, and which is the place I took my trainings at. And he has been a constant support from the last 3 years of my life. He has been encouraging me. He has been telling me what to go forward with, how do I, balance my work life with the kind of heavy work that I do with clients. Every time I used to get overwhelmed with the burnout or anything like that, I would go back to Trauma Release and Wellness Center, and everybody over there would help me out through that. There were a lot of times when I used to get stuck within my career, and guiding me towards the right supervisors and everything. That has been great. There Because what really I learned from him was that you cannot be a good trauma therapist without healing your own traumas. You cannot, be a good trauma informed professional until you do not understand and recover from everything that you have gone through in your life. So really diving deep into my own journey with therapy as well, when I took therapies of all sorts, really diving deep into my own journey of mental health and my own journey of recovering from complex PTSD. That was There was one person behind it, and that was On. And till date, he's my mentor, and I really really look up to him and all the work that he is doing by bringing all of these trainings to Pakistan.
And you are able to guide people as mentor as well?
Not yet, not yet.
Not
I
yet.
am still quite in the journey
And
of
if someone observed
understanding.
you that you have to be mentor of him or her, what will you do then?
There are a lot of people who do come to me, and I always guide them towards what they have to do to become a trauma informed professional, what they need to do within the therapy if they want to figure out their niches. Because a lot of things I had to figure out on my own, and I was lucky enough to have mentors like On. But to really call myself a mentor in my own words, that would be a bit too much. But yes, I have guided a lot of people around me, a lot of my juniors, a lot of people in university, outside of university, in my network. So I'm just glad to play my part, and I dream to one day, be a supervisor myself, because supervision I feel like is a very very important uh, field within Pakistan. We need to have more supervisors. We need to have more qualified, better supervisors every other day. So that is the dream, to go towards supervision, providing that for the newer therapists out there, the younger generation of therapists that is coming along. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. And when you find time for yourself, a free time, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? So I'm an artist. I also write poetry.
Hmm.
I have been baking from God knows how long, and I love to bake for my family and friends, because that's just a way of, building that community, hosting people at my place. I really also really love traveling. Solo traveling. In fact, I have one coming up this weekend. So solo traveling has been something for me from the last few years.
Hmm.
And whenever I get the time, whenever I get the budget for it, I am on a flight and I'm traveling somewhere. And I honestly, I just believe that while the work is serious and there are a lot of serious things that go into it, when it comes to my own life, I'm just a girl who also sometimes loves to party and loves to,
Hmm.
just have fun with friends, travel to new places, learn new cultures, learn new languages. I'm pretty fluent in Turkish.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, those are
It means
yes,
you have
yes.
a grip in a lot of languages, right? I need some tips from your side. How to learn a new language.
Songs help. Songs
Songs
really help a
help
lot.
in any language?
Yeah. Yeah. There is this. I remember when I was learning Turkish, my Turkish teacher gave me this website, and she said, "There's this website. It has songs and it has the song lyrics. So my telaffuz or pronunciation, as we say, will get better, and I'll also learn a lot of vocabulary along the way. So songs really helped me. It was
Okay,
just
can
a
you say
creative way of
something?
learning a language.
Can you say something in Turkish in this podcast just to say you are what you are feeling right now. I'm recording your podcast just to say a line in Turkish.
Okay. Ben çok mutlu hissediyorum. I'm feeling very happy.
I don't know what you are saying, but I enjoyed. I enjoyed the accent. Okay, Chintra, in your experience, what are
Hmm.
some unique challenges faced by families dealing with trauma?
Hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to families and the work we do with families, is that at some point everybody within the family have gone through something adverse. They have gone through something distressing within their lives. And
Hmm,
what we have seen is that now in this generation, in this time and age, we're talking about mental health, we're talking about healing and trauma recovery very openly. But back then, it wasn't the norm. So let's just even say that, in 1947, when the entire partition happened, families migrated here, families migrated from here to India, right? So a lot of traumatic things they have seen during that time, right? But within our grandparents' generation, trauma recovery, trauma symptoms, none of those was the language back then. So while they have also gone through multiple generations within families have gone through something adverse, they did not have the language to really describe it. So the
hmm,
first thing we really see, which is a challenge that comes across with families, is that there are older generations who will understand what trauma is, but they may not have that language yet to understand it the way the younger generations do.
hmm,
And that creates a communication gap. They may also have their own mental health struggles going on, but they don't have the language of saying it as depression or anxiety the way our generation can say it. Right? So there is always this communication gap, and there is this education. I wouldn't say education gap, but there's this language gap that we have to first fulfill. So whenever we are working with families, first getting them all on the same page about what trauma is. So psychoeducation is a big part of that,
hmm,
where we are educating them about the psychology of trauma, about the psychology of what they've gone through, why they are behaving the way they are behaving, why is it that their heart starts racing, why is it that they start disconnecting from the world, why is it that every time a conflict happens within the family, there'll be one person who would be yelling, and there'll be one person who will be leaving the room, there'll be one person who will be completely shut down and frozen and numb on what to say. So helping them understand these dynamics from a psychological viewpoint is the very first challenge that we have to address, because once everybody comes on the same page and they understand and they normalize their experiences and the other person's experience within the family, we're able to create more cooperation and harmony with them
hmm,
on that. And then also helping them understand that, okay, if this is what you're going through, if there's a conflict happening within the family and there's one person who is yelling, and now they know why do we yell the way we yell, why are we in that fight and flight mode, then helping them with those techniques and resources to first regulate their fight and flight mode, to
hmm,
first regulate their voice, to regulate their emotions at that time, to regulate what their body is going through when that conflict is happening. And then there will be a different set of techniques and resources we will be using for that one person who's having the conflict and they're leaving the room,
hmm,
because they're in the fight mode, they're not in the fight mode, they're not yelling, they're leaving the room. So helping, so now they know that, okay, this is what happens to me when a family conflict happens, I end up leaving the room. So first helping them regulate that, and that will be very different than somebody who's yelling, because they won't have to regulate their voice, they won't have to regulate their breathing at that time probably, but yes, they'll have to stay grounded at that time and stay within the conflict, but also have a little bit of a healthy distance and space so they can actually, they can actually focus on their own well-being too. And then there are people who get completely disconnected. Those require a very different set of techniques that we work with. For example, just asking them to walk around the room for a little bit so that they're connected back to the present moment. But also they're regulated, because walking really helps us emotionally regulate. So, there are different techniques and resources that we have to work with each family member. And that requires time, that requires patience. So any of the families that come to this work, I have utmost admiration for them, because breaking these generational patterns of trauma is not easy. And still creating a better family that is not defined by these experiences, that is not easy, because of course they carry their own histories, their bodies carry that history. They come with a lot of physical symptoms first, that, okay, I have had a lot of stiffness in my legs, I have had a lot of stiffness in my shoulders, I am not really able to get out of bed sometimes. They don't know the language of trauma yet, so they
hmm.
come with the language of sometimes, which is also very culturally
Yes.
relevant. If
At least
it
they
sounds
should
very
aware of that language, right?
yes, exactly, exactly. So
Tintra,
first, helping them understand what that is. That is the
hmm,
first
why they have come there?
challenge.
They should know that why they have come there. All right.
Yeah.
Tintra, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really wonderful having you here and learning from your experiences. But before I wrap up, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
Sure. I would just like to say to the audience that there are going to be many things in our life. There are going to be many people in our life who have affected us negatively, and a lot of times we would be tempted to define our lives with by those people, by those experiences. Let their voices become our voices. But what's really important is to find your inner voice, to find your own inner strengths and capacities, because we all have them. And when you are really identifying your strengths and capacities, you have the ability to create a life for yourself that your heart really, really loves. And it's not defined by what you have gone through, but it's defined by what you have done in response to that, what you have created out of that, what growth you have seen out of that. So, therapy really, really helps with that. Therapy, healing, communities really help with that. So having those connections in your life, whether it is on a personal level, professional level, those are very
Hmm,
important to cultivate. And if you're doing that, proud of you. Really
that's
kudos to
great.
you guys.
A lovely piece of advice. Any message or any suggestion for me?
Of course, we can always connect more to discuss that, but I would just say that the work you're doing is really important. I went through, your YouTube portfolio. I went through all of the different content that you bring out, and I think it's very important to create that hub of knowledge for people in Pakistan. Where they get to learn everything about every other field out there. So I would really say that what you're doing is really important, and to continue doing that, and to a lot more mental health professionals come into this and they speak about it even better, because you're creating the way for more accessibility to this knowledge and language of mental health that we want to bring in Pakistan. So thank you.
Thank you so much once again that you have participated in this podcast and you have given us a time. And definitely, I believe and I hope I am going to invite you with another episode with different questions which we talk about, and it will definitely be helpful for the people in Pakistan and all over the world. Thank you so much once
Yes,
again. Have a lovely day.
thank
Take care.
thank
Allah
you.
Hafiz.